think people realize how great the postpartum bucket is and how like needed it is.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that you said in the other video that you shared with your friend, the necessities that come in the postpartum bucket, because this is like baby and mom, that's more mom.
Yeah.
Like, and mom just did a lot of hard work.
Absolutely.
And needs the care. I mean, those pads, the icicle pads, that are like really long icicle pads, are my favorite thing. I like look forward to the moment that I can put that icicle pad on, because it's just that like relief. Like, you just push an entire human being
out. It
like,
doesn't feel great afterwards.
No, I mean, you just pushed a whole human out, so you can't expect much else other than having a little bit of soreness,
discomfort.
Yeah. And then the after ease, which is an add-on to the either bucket, but you can add the after ease tincture, and I take that like probably every 5 to 10 minutes after giving birth, because I just had my 4th, and they say that the afterbirth pains get worse with each kid, and I will 100% tell you they get stronger with each kid. Especially like nursing for that first little bit, because that causes the contractions, which is good.
You need that.
You need your uterus to shrink back down and, you know, to stop bleeding and everything. So the after ease tincture not only helps that, but also eases the pain that you feel from it, because it's almost as bad as labor pains, but you don't have all the endorphins and oxytocin and everything that goes with it.
You don't know that you're getting ready to push out a human. Like, you've already pushed the human out, so now you're having all the pains of you're getting ready to push a human out without the human part.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, I wish this was already over.
Yeah, exactly. You already got the prize, and now you're still going through
the pain.
Yeah, all the pain that comes with it. But yeah, that postpartum bucket. What else is, there's more of the like lap pads in there, because like for the first little bit afterwards, like I had those on my bed, just so I didn't have to change sheets all the time and everything. The Depends, I think I went through all of them that were in there. I don't think I went much more over, but I don't bleed for very long afterwards. So
I went through this, and then I ended up buying some more and using it separately.
Yeah.
I also just stay in them as long as possible.
Yeah.
This is also my 4th child, so I, have zero modesty in that respect. I tell my husband, like, we made a baby, and this is what you get afterwards. Like,
yep, exactly. I just did the hard work for 10 months, so
he doesn't care though.
That's what we were joking about earlier, about like their 20 seconds it takes, and then our 10 months. It's a very different world here of healing, you know?
Yeah. So I had 3 children before my best friend had 1, and one of the things I told her was, do not care about how pretty or beautiful you are afterwards. Buy some Depends, wear those Depends, and rock them, because you're going to need them, and it does not matter. No, it doesn't matter which they're in the postpartum bucket, and it's absolutely, you're so much more comfortable afterwards. It's easier to care for yourself and everything else, and that was one of the things she said to me. She's like, Sarah, you were so right. She's like, I absolutely loved having my Depends, and I wore them until I didn't need them anymore.
You've already impressed everybody by like giving birth to an entire human. You don't need to be looking super pretty and being all like clothing and like I'm like Depends, loose clothing, like don't touch me. I just want to hold my baby and lay here.
I did not use the witch hazel this time, but I have used, I didn't need it this time. Again, every birth is very different.
Yep.
But I have used witch hazel in the past, so when we added that to the bucket, I really liked that.
Yep.
That we had that. I just, at this
Did you use the witch hazel to make the pads? Is that what you used the witch hazel for before? I've seen where you can make the witch hazel with the regular pads, and then you put them in the freezer, and it does kind of the same thing as the perineal ones that come in that kit. But I think the witch hazel is also good properties in like disinfecting and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, cleansing, making sure everything's clean.
Yep. And then the peri bottle, I think that comes in that one is
my
like
favorite thing ever.
just know that when you use the bathroom after having a baby, make sure the peri bottle has warm water in it and is near her at all times, because I know if you're watching this out there and you're a mom and you've torn and you needed stitches type thing, that it is not fun to pee afterwards, and that peri bottle makes all the difference. I know with my first child, she was 9'3", and her head was very large, and I ended up needing like 40 something stitches basically, and that peri bottle was like night and day, and I didn't realize how night and day it was until I had my second and I didn't tear, and I was like, it doesn't hurt.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
I also tore with my first daughter, but she was my only hospital birth actually, and they never told me about the peri bottle or anything like that.
Like, it's like a hidden secret.
I had no idea a peri bottle was even a thing, and I had torn, and it was so painful. And I, being young and first time mom, I didn't know a lot of the stuff that I know now, or even with my second child. And so it was one of those things that now that I literally had the peri bottle right next to me. I used it with my other 2 home births.
Yep.
And it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, and I think they actually make, I know ours is like the normal peri bottle, but have you seen the Frida one that like has the little loop?
Yep.
Yeah, it's really cool, but I don't really think it's as necessary to have it. Even just the normal peri bottles work just as well type deal. So yeah, and then the extra baby hat that comes in there, because just transitioning out of the baby hat, normally the first one you put on gets a little wet and goopy and things like that, so it does come with the extra hat in there as well.
And the receiving blanket.
And more blankets.
Your first receiving blanket. If you're having the baby and grabbing the baby with that blanket, it's gooey and nasty.
And I've had all 4 of mine have been water births, so they always get wet. We are normally on our 3rd blanket by the time we even get out of the pool. Because you want to keep the baby as warm as possible type thing. And we actually do a little trick that we take our baby hats and baby blankets and put them in a pillowcase with a heating pad, like an electric heating pad. We plug it in and put it in the pillowcase and stack the blankets and hats on either side of it so that they're warm already when you put it on the baby. And I don't know if we did it for yours. I think we did it for our other friends. But it was something that we've learned after having so many babies, that like that nice warm blanket just adds that extra little bit of a touch.
That's very cool.
So
learn something new every day.
Yeah, you learn something new with each baby too. Like each birth is, this last birth gave me a run for it. Like my other 3 were so like on sync to each other, and this last one, he wanted that hand to come out right by his head, and that gave me, man, a time to push him out.
Well, I remember with mine, so you and Kale were there, and I'm pushing, and so this was the longest I've ever had to push with a baby. I was super blessed with very short push times with my first 3. But with this baby, it was probably like 5 times the amount of time that I pushed, which was not very long, but still, it felt forever.
It feels like forever.
And I remember sitting there thinking, like, I can't do this. I'm too old. I'm too old for this now. I'm so tired.
It's so exhausting by the end of it.
But then I pushed, and I heard you and Kale say, the head's coming. I'm like, I can do this.
You can.
I just kept pushing.
Yep. Those last few moments, you have to like push through it. I know with my little guy, it was like 30 minutes I had of just straight crowning, and he just was just not coming out. And that's because his little hand wanted to come right by his head, and it gave it just enough of a different shape that it just, I was like, you're getting out right now. I mean, I was 41 weeks and 6 days at this point. So I was just like, we're done. Like, you're getting out. And I remember looking at my mom, and she had her hands up to the sky praying, and I was like, yep, nope, that's not a good sign. Like, because it was so different than my other births. Like, we were like, okay, like he needs to keep going, like he needs to come out. And seeing somebody in the room praying, you know, like, okay, it's time to get you out. So yeah, those last few pushes, I was like, you're getting out right now. Like, and then bringing him up, and that moment of like relief when they finally come out. But then the placenta, that's a whole different.
It took forever. Again, that took forever this time. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at you and I'm like, should I be pushing now? Like, should it be coming out? Like, again, 4th time, like what's going on?
Yeah.
And it was taking its time.
And at that point, when we were waiting for the placenta, me being like the doula, I guess, in your birth, one thing I've always been taught is hydration and how much that matters. So the oral rehydration salts, and we have the lemon ones in the birth bucket because it just tastes a little bit better. They're still not great, but they're needed. So I just kept reminding you, I kept like handing you your drink with the straw, and there's actually bendy straws in here too, because it's just way easier to give somebody a drink to drink when you're laying there holding a baby, you know, type deal. But I just kept reminding you, like, take another drink, take another drink. Even if it's little sips, you just want to stay hydrated, because you just pushed an entire human being out. And you probably haven't eaten. You had thrown up in labor.
I had thrown up right before I went to labor. Like, I was going into that transition period where I was like, oh, he's coming. But being the 3rd trimester, and I had heartburn every single night of the 3rd trimester, so I was sick every single night.
Yeah.
And I thought in my head, oh man, he's gonna make me puke right before I give birth. And guess what happened? I got sick to my stomach right before I gave birth. Like, literally got sick to my stomach, walked back to the bedroom, and my water broke.
Yep.
And
your words have power.
Yes.
You learn that when you're pregnant. I kept saying I was going to be the last one pregnant out of our group, and I was, even though I was due 2 weeks, past. And I had him 3 days after she did, because I kept telling myself, like, you're going to be the last one pregnant, and sure enough, our words have power. I got to remember that. Like, remember what you say can happen type deal.
Absolutely. But I was super thankful you were there giving me liquids and everything, because also something I experienced I had never experienced in any of my other births was basically like a blood sugar crash, I guess is what it was. My
Pretty
legs
much.
were shaking uncontrollably. And no matter how much I did my breathing exercises or knowing that I'm fine and calming myself, my legs would, no matter how flat I laid on the bed, my legs would not stop shaking.
And I think that's also the adrenaline dump. Like your body's kind of like trying to figure out the new normal because of what you just went through. And I remember like holding onto your leg because I could like see it shaking and everything. And and dads are like more with the baby and, you know, thinking about these things, but they're not thinking about like the hydration part. Even though the rest of the year they're harping on us about drinking water, you know, every 2 minutes when we're like, my head hurts. And they're like, did you drink water today? And I'm like, I mean, like a bottle, maybe. So yeah, having those hydration salts right after birth, even if you're in a hospital, getting those hydration salts is a huge thing. You just dump it in a bottle of water, put a straw in it for easement, and give it to the mom just repeatedly. Even if it's little sips, it makes a huge difference with recovery.
Absolutely.
Afterwards, because she now gets to take care of the baby and, you know, feed the baby possibly and all those types of things. Like she needs to be as hydrated and well taken care of as possible, which is why that postpartum bucket is so important. I see people buying the birth bucket and not the postpartum, and I'm like, but no, think of the mom. Because we helped create these, so we know how important everything in them is. And we put a ton of thought in even the add-ons, like the after ease tincture that I talked about in the other one, and what else is in there? There's the emergency childbirth book, which is really good if you're really like have no idea what you're walking into type thing, kind of reading up on that prior. And then the Eldon blood type cards is a huge add-on because you can then take the baby's blood type there, and if you don't know mom and dad's blood type, you can do it too, which is why it comes in a pack of 3. So you can kind of see the blood typing, because I'm a negative blood type, my husband's positive, so we always have to figure out if we need the RhoGAM shot or not. And this was actually my first birth. I didn't need it, which was super nice because he was the same blood type as me. But having those Eldon cards, especially in the end of the world type scenarios, you know, where you can't go to other places to get blood typing done, is a huge, I think, prep to have. It's not like they really, I'm sure there's an expiration date on them because there's an expiration date on everything, it seems to be. But having those just stored away in a bucket, for sure.
Well, I think it's also important too, just in general, because then you have your blood type and your child's blood type on hand, even for future reference. Because you may not need it right when the baby's born, but here you are 2, 3, 4 years down the line, and your child gets potentially hurt or something like that, and now you already know what blood type they are, because for the most part you don't really think of that when your child's born or anything like that, and it's good to have that on hand in the future. God forbid something happens.
Yeah, for sure. And I've met people who are like, I don't know what blood type I am. And I'm like, how do you not know what blood type you are? I feel like that's something like, you know, your social security number, your birthday, your blood type. Like it should be part of your just knowledge. But I forget that like most people don't live in the like emergency preparedness aspect, and it's like, no, I need to know these things. Like if I get into a car accident, they're gonna need to know that if I need blood for some reason. So like I should know on my head or have it in my medical records type thing. I know in our phones it has our medical records you can add in there and everything. So
well, I think that's important too. So like even if you're having a hospital birth, and we're not right now at the end of the world, but if you're planning on having a hospital birth still, it's still really important to have these buckets, because like you said, you were in the car.
You never know when labor's going to start.
And you don't know when labor's going to start. I've seen so many videos of cops pulling over because someone's giving birth on the side of the road kind of thing. So if you have this with you and have this as a prep, even if you're doing a hospital birth, you may not need anything in it, but you're still prepared for if mom goes into labor unexpectedly. And even then, even early, like preterm and stuff like that, there's still, you know, there's still that possibility.
Even if you don't use the like surgical clamping aspect, even like the pads and everything, like are a great thing. Even like water breaking, like those pads make night and day difference if you just have them on the bed, because then you protect your sheets. And we do the whole thing where you lay like a waterproof tablecloth down and then put the sheet over it. That way you can just, you know, remove it and have a clean sheet underneath that's completely not touched by all the stuff that comes out when you give birth to a human.
I had my shower curtain.
I've
always done a shower curtain.
Always having that waterproof barrier makes a huge difference in the cleanup aspect, because like mom goes take a shower when you're doing after the home birth, and then you like want to have it all clean and nice so that she can lay back down and just relax and cuddle the baby and go to sleep. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it of our birth experiences in our life. And now we get to help all of our other friends give birth and answer any other questions they have. I'm sure we can make a follow-up video and kind of chat more if you guys are interested. So thanks.